Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's another webinar of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Working Group within the Pulmonary Circulation Assembly. My name is Roberto Bernardo from Stanford University, and on behalf of my co-editors, Dr. Sasha Prisco from U of Minnesota and Dr. Jose Gomez Arroyo from U of Cincinnati, we have an exciting webinar on how to pursue a career in pulmonary vascular disease. Our speaker panel are going to introduce themselves, but a few things for all of you to know, please. This is very flexible and it's very interactive. Any questions you have for our panelists, please feel free to write those questions in the chat or raise your hand and we can go through those questions. I'm going to let Dr. Goncharova introduce herself first. Elena?
Hi, I'm Elena Goncharova. I'm from University of California, Davis. I am professor and director of Pulmonary Vascular Disease Group, and our lab focuses on the basic and preclinical research in pulmonary hypertension.
Excellent. Dr. Al-Naamani?
Hi, I'm Nadine Al-Naamani. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and I am part of the Pulmonary Vascular Disease Group. And my research focuses on clinical and translational studies trying to understand body composition, obesity, fat, and muscle interactions in pulmonary hypertension.
Excellent. Dr. Dai?
So my name is Zhiyu Dai. So I'm an associate professor at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm in the pulmonary division here. So my research focuses on lung vascular biology and pulmonary arterial hypertension. So we right now utilize the transgenic mouse model, single cell omic, like spatial omic, which try to help to identify the cell population and potentially novel mechanism that could help to conquer this disease. I'm so happy to be here to participate on this workshop. Thank you.
And Dr. Minhas?
Hey guys, I'm Jasleen Minhas. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania. My clinical and research work focuses on pulmonary hypertension, and specifically, I'm looking at the use of variable devices and biosensors in pulmonary hypertension to help us better take care of our patients in their home environments.
Great. Again, thank you everybody for joining us today. I know it's Friday. We're all very busy, but it's going to be a very exciting webinar. So, Elena, let me start with you. Could you tell us about what made you pursue a career in PH? How did you get to this point?
Yeah, no, thank you. It was really a funny story. To be honest, when I did my undergraduate and grad research, I never thought I will be doing pulmonary hypertension because I did airway smooth muscle biology focused basic research in Moscow State University. And after that, I moved to University of Pennsylvania and joined Dr. Vera Krumskaya lab. We've been studying a disease called pulmonary lymph angiomyomatosis or pulmonary LAM. And it's a rare disease, such a long name. Our patients been joking that it takes them an year just to pronounce their diagnosis. So, and we did a lot of good job and published well. And I thought I would be staying on pulmonary LAM for forever. And after that, two things happened. My division chief informed me that he doesn't need two rare disease researchers in his division. And Steve Cavett relocated to University of Pennsylvania and came with an idea. So why don't we, you're a smooth muscle biologist, you're an mTOR person, why don't you try to refocus on pulmonary hypertension? I did this. I never looked back. This is a fantastic field, and it's so much need to be done. When I started, it was like more than a decade ago. So little been known about remodeling, and there was no drugs to modify the disease. So I think it's very exciting time to be on pulmonary hypertension field.
Great. Nadine, do you mind telling us about your journey in the pulmonary hypertension space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a foreign medical graduate. I finished my medicine degree from the American University of Beirut, and I actually also stayed for an internal medicine residency at the American University of Beirut. Again, finished my residency and then was moving to the US with my husband, who was already a postdoc at Columbia University. And I was serendipitously introduced to Steve Kaywood. I think this is a theme on this call at Columbia. And at the time, he was had received his first R01 grant for doing a phase 2 clinical trial in pulmonary hypertension patients. I did not have a lot of understanding of pulmonary hypertension. I knew I was interested in pulmonary diseases. So I got to work firsthand as a research coordinator. I was like meeting with patients, screening patient charts, conducting study visits, and I got really fascinated by the disease and disease physiology. And so when I did my retraining in the US and then went for my pulmonary fellowship training, I chose Tufts Medical Center because they are well-established pulmonary hypertension center. And I was looking for fellowships in Boston, again, for family reasons. And then have stayed. And now I joined University of Pennsylvania again because I was still being mentored by Steve Kaywood. And by the time I was done with my training, he was back at the University of Pennsylvania. And so the rest is history.
I think we're gonna hear Steve's name a lot today, which is great. It's not surprising. Zhiyu, what about you? Can you tell us about why did you choose this career pathway?
Yeah, thank you. I think yeah, I know it's good to hear what Nadine, is a story. Is so for me, my journey is start from when I got my PhD training back into China. So which at that time, I think the US has the best medical research. So I only, want to come to US for my postdoc training. So I was very interested in the vascular biology at that time. So eventually I joined my postdoc mentor, Dr. Youyang Zhao's lab at University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC. So Dr. Zhao's at UIC, which is in the Department of Pharmacology, and that department has very long vasculature research. That's research in acute lung injury and endothelial cell regeneration. That's a lab working on pulmonary hypertension. Dr. Zhao's labs study both endothelial cell regeneration and acute lung injury and pulmonary arterial hypertension. The first year I actually was working on like sepsis, like induced acute lung injury, and I was very frustrated that I worked day and night to titrate, different dose of the LPS and different time point of whether these LPS can induce severe, acute lung injury in the mice. But at that point, we were very fortunate to observe one of the mouse model we developed, which is like EGR1 type 2 chronic mice. And then mice actually develop a very severe pulmonary hypertension. And then at that time, we can quickly switch to characterize this model. And it turned out it's a very good model of pulmonary hypertension. And then after that, I moved my project from acute lung injury to pulmonary hypertension. So it's kind of like an unexpected observation on our daily experiments. And later I realized the pH is it's a big deal, as that treatment are limited and then patients are dying because of right heart failure, and that's a different kind of category of the pH. So I was fascinated by how complex of this disease, and then because of lung vasculature is very unique. So eventually when I started my lab, so I want to focus on the lung vasculature and the pH. So I think that's part of my story, how in this field. I think it's a very supportive community. I'm very happy to be part of in this community.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Jasleen, do you mind telling us about your journey in the PH field?
Yeah, so I am also a foreign medical grad. I graduated from med school in a state called Maharashtra in India. My med school was actually a rural med school. I moved to the US sort of because my family immigrated here a couple of years before I finished med school. And so my first patient contact in the US was during my US clinical experience as I was doing my rotations to get into residency. I also worked on the side as a care coordinator for CHF patients getting discharged from Bronx Lebanon Hospital in Bronx, New York. And a large part of my work was counseling patients with right and left heart failure on things they should do when they get discharged from the hospital. And so that was sort of my first contact with heart failure in general. And then as I got into residency at a community hospital outside of Boston, I sought out mentorship within the Partners/Harvard system and worked closely with Dr. Nick Rahagi, who was a fantastic mentor, worked with him on imaging research and pulmonary hypertension. And sort of, I as a segue, I tell everyone that if I was not a doctor, I would be a coder or a software engineer. And so I thought like imaging research sort of helped me like develop that passion a little bit. And then I moved to the University of Pennsylvania, obviously to seek out mentorship with Dr. Kaywood and Al-Naamani. And then with that sort of, brought my, device/large data skills into the research that I'm currently doing. But clinically, for me, pulmonary hypertension was, sort of what resonated most with me. Number one, because of, the challenging physiology and how sort of intellectually satiating it was. And the second thing was, the care of our patients who very often will see, they're young. It's an invisible illness that people can't see externally, but still carries a significant burden for them. So that was sort of, the amalgamation of my clinical and research interests in pulmonary hypertension.
That is fascinating. Thank you, all of you, for sharing that. Elena, when I first met you, you may not remember this, but it was PVRI in China many, many, many years ago. Anyways, at least from my perspective, moving to the US is never easy. Elena, and all of you, if you don't mind me asking, could you tell us about any potential challenges you face when relocating to the US?
Absolutely. I think I've been very lucky because my mentor in the University of Pennsylvania, my primary mentor with whom I did postdoc, was also first-generation immigrant, and she understood problems most of us are facing. So my major problem is visas, because we usually come, like many of us who doing postdoc come like J1 holders, and have to like migrate, because you can stay on J forever, migrate to H, and after that, if you're lucky, to the green card, and after that, if you are super lucky, to become a citizen. So I moved in the United States in 2001. I became a citizen in 2019. So J and H are extremely challenging because it tempers your ability to apply for the funding. So, like you learn your ways, right? So there are foundation grants you can apply to. There are K99, R00 you can apply to, and there's R1 you can apply to. So, and this actually, like a lack of all other Ks and Fs and all those grants, apparently put us kind of like in unfortunate position, because acquiring funding is one of two major measurements of success here in the United States. So, and another one is, for at least for me, was when I came here. So I been reading fluently in English. I've been writing quite well. I didn't understand a word. So when people just kind of like, and it took me several years, and still like heavy accent. I am glad that science, like we talk science, right? I am very glad that like having an accent is not a problem. So, however, when you write grants, so it's expected that your English will be impeccable. So no reviewer will kind of like give you some kind of like reviewers want kind of grantsmanship being on a level, right? This is another thing, but it's all doable now. So I think those two, but I think visas was a real killer, and you always on a lookout, right? Like when I have to renew, what are my limitations? Will I get another visa? Will I not? Can I apply to green card? Is it too early? Can I travel? What I need for travel? It's hard. So like other than that, like I think that was pretty smooth.
Thanks for sharing. Nadine, do you mind commenting on some of the challenges that you faced when you relocated to the US?
Yeah, so I also immigrated here so I immigrated here knowing that I would like to eventually apply for the green card. So in order to do that, I knew that I wanted an H-1B visa as opposed to the J visa, because the J visa, for those who are not familiar, requires a 2-year home country or a waiver. And so because I knew that I wanted to stay, and, we had plans with my husband that we wanted to stay, I was lucky that at the time, Steve Kawit was willing to support this, as well as Columbia University was willing to support an H-1B visa, which is not the preferred visa for students. It also, when I was applying for residency programs, really limited my options because, again, it's not a visa that's sponsored by a lot of the residency programs. They don't want to go through that. It requires a lot of legal documentation, working with lawyers, a financial cost to institutions, which I don't even know what the cost is at this time in this, and I don't know that many programs still support this. But so I immigrated to the U.S. in 2006, and I got my green card in 2014, which was in a way lucky for me because 2014 was when I was finishing my pulmonary fellowship, and it was very clear to me by that point that I needed formal training in clinical research, and I wanted to pursue a master's program. But obviously, that would not have been possible to get any grant funding if I did not have a citizenship status. And so I couldn't apply to the CTSA grants at Tufts during my fellowship because I was still on a visa at that time. But I luckily got my green card in January of 2014 and finished my fellowship in June of that year, and started my master's program supported by a TL1 grant from the CTSA at Tufts in July of 2014. And so I did my master's 2 years of master's after I was done with the pulmonary fellowship, which, ended up working to my advantage, that I had enough time that I was able to just dedicate to do my master's and focus on research and kind of think about then applying for grants. Another thing that I could not have done before I had my citizenship status. So visas are a major issue for foreign grads who are coming to this country, and limit your options with what kind of funding mechanisms you can actually apply to.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you for sharing that. Pepe, are you on the call?
Yes, thank you. And hi, everybody. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. I'm Jose Gomez Arroyo. I'm also a physician scientist working in pulmonary hypertension, and here with Roberto and Sasha, trying to bring a little bit of the experience of this very well established researchers and physician scientists within the community. I have the pleasure to ask Zhiyu, a longstanding friend of mine, a question. I think he has had a stellar career very rapidly came from a postdoc into associate professorship like lightning speed with multiple R1s. And I guess the question I have for him, it is obvious that we all kind of share the same issue of understanding, having right mentorship to help us find the limitations of our immigration status and how can we circumvent those issues in order to become successful. I wonder how you're like balancing that now that you are on the other side, now that you are the PI trying to help other people within your lab and not necessarily only from China, but I guess from other institutions that may struggle with obtaining immigration status that will allow them to then go on to secure federal funding. So how do you do it now?
Thank you for your question. And then, so because I have been mimicking all this process, like immigration, which Nadine and then Elena share. So I'm aware of this situation applied to my that member or trainee or maybe the colleague in other institute. And I always would love to share the information I know so that they can understand or they have an option what kind of grant they can apply at their stage. For example, if they are the students, where there's any pre-doc fellowship, their postdoc, any like a postdoc fellowship or training grant, they could apply at their stage, right? Or like a junior faculty, which haven't have a green card yet, like the K-99 or other like foundation like AHA and ATS. The others, I also will try to basically share with my experience, why how I plan, when I was doing the postdoc, whether I have a clear goal, what time I should get my paper published, right? Kind of like motivate them to basically to plan well, because sometimes those opportunities, they have a certain limit of time. For example, K-99, they apply only have limited for 4 years after PhD training. So I basically shared a path. I know, or maybe I learned from other people there's a path they could they could succeed, and then I have to provide a resource. I basically the resource we have from the lab or from the institution or the networking I have. I introduce the people I know to them, or the colleague. I always try to do that when I also in the conference, introduce the colleague to the fields who I know. I think that's also how I learned when I started, when I was a postdoc, and how the community, to basically maybe more included. So I learned from them, and I try to do the same for the people I know or the trainee who really need the support. So I don't know if that I answer all your question. Just let me know if I missed something.
Thank you, Zhiyu. Jasleen, what about you? What about relocating to the US? Can you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, so I will say, so I came to the US on a green card, although I had several friends that went through sort of the challenges related to visas that have been shared here. I think the issues, a lot of the issues that I faced or hurdles that I faced were related to the other things that international grads sort of encounter, a majority of which is, often being held to the same barometer in terms of productivity as US grads, whereas you don't actually have the opportunities available to you. So I would say, the first thing for me was, when I came, I got all of my US clinical experience after med school. So I spent 2 years after med school, essentially, seeking out US clinical experience and rotating in places, wherever I could, while also simultaneously, working at minimum wages to trying to support my gas money to make it to those places. During residency, my residency was at a community hospital, so I had to actively seek out mentorship. And I will say, not everyone is welcoming or understanding of the challenges that you may face, or the lack of experience, for example, by a statistical background or research background that you may have as an international grad. Fortunately, I worked with terrific mentors, Dr. Rahagi and Washko at the Brigham, who were sort of understanding of that and, lended me opportunities. But even then, being a busy resident at a community hospital, it often meant that I was, scrambling during the evenings and nights, trying to complete research projects to remain productive, because I knew I wanted to get into, an academic fellowship. So that was sort of additional tasks to take on. While applying for fellowships, for the sake of transparency, I heard several times that I did not have the pedigrees or the experience, so to speak, to match into an academic program with a lack of research background or coming from a smaller community hospital, training-wise. Thankfully, I think my program director and mentors at Penn looked beyond that, and it really extended to me the opportunities of or the resources to develop the skills I didn't have. For example, the Masters of Science in Clinical Epidemiology sort of degree simultaneously with my fellowship to build that research background and foundation that I needed. But the same thing comes up again when you apply for a grant. So I still remember the first time my first submission for an F was scored above the funding line, because I had not held a former grant or did not have enough of a long enough background in biostatistics. And I said, hey, but I never had those opportunities, right? So I think again and again, being held to the same barometer as somebody that trained here is really hard.
Jasleen, thank you for sharing your experience. So one of the audience questions, this is from Dr. Shen from Binghamton University. So the question is, as an early career faculty at a university which does not have a medical school, what is the strategy to find clinical collaborations? For example, is it wise to make my own biobank or rely on others? This is kind of open up to all of the panelists.
Well, I can try. Hi, Steve. I hope everything is well. So, and I always suggest do both. Do both, because and reason for this, that NIH expects you to provide several sources of materials to be sure you have what you need, like access to resources to successfully complete your studies. So, and I think with you well incorporated in the field, it would be no problem for you to find a clinical collaborator here in US or worldwide.
That's great advice, Elena. Thank you for that. And again, thank you, all of you, for sharing your perspectives about relocating to the US. Seems that with hard work and having the right mentorship is so important for all of you to get to the point where you are. So, Elena, in the process of establishing yourself as an independent investigator, I'm sure many mistakes happen. Could you tell us about some of the mistakes you made and the lessons you learned through that process of establishing as an independent PI?
Media, okay.
Yes.
All right. So, in fact, I think one mistake I made is not clearly figuring out what expectations from me, because so my CV looks extremely weird, because I had several fellowships on pulmonary LEM, and after that I had several fellowship grants on pulmonary hypertension. So I supposed to move to R, but I didn't, because I had to start do same step on PH. And another funny mistake that pretty much I think shaped up my mentorship team. So it's it was a good mistake that Steve Cavett mentored me as pulmonary hypertension mentor. And he did it extremely well, but he is exceptional clinical trialist. And I desperately needed somebody from basic and preclinical side of PH. And in Penn, we had no one. So, and it came to my mind that I know Ruben Tudor. I knew Ruben Tudor is exceptional preclinical scientist. And what I did, I emailed him out of blue. He didn't know who I am, and said, just I'm in Penn, and in fact, we don't have any basic science people here. And I put together some data, and I just wonder, and maybe you can advise me. So, how good is this for R? What should else I do? And I sent him this data like PowerPoint file. He emailed me back next day, and he said, Elena, I see you really need a mentor, and I am ready to be your mentor. And my first advice to you, never ever send your unpublished data to the person you never seen in your life. So Ruben Tudor became my mentor, and I think between Steve and Ruben, I got exceptional mentorship team. So I think this was a good mistake, to be honest, but don't do this, please.
So I guess I'll go next. That's okay. I think Nadine, I'm very curious about your experience on becoming a PI. So do you want to walk us a little bit through this, and then what would you say it would be something that you would recommend or would not recommend when it comes setting up things from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself one of the lucky ones, again, with my mentorship with Steve Cavett, who's been mentoring me since 2006, so almost 2 decades now. I've had a steady voice of reason along the way. I think the biggest thing that I would tell myself if I were to go back in time is to grow a thick skin. I think all of us, when we're starting, you're working on one paper, you're working on one project, and it's kind of like your whole life. And you submit, and then you get a rejection from a journal, and it feels like your world is kind of crumbling down. And, I don't want to do this. Am I really fit to do this? So I think just learning how to get feedback and incorporating what is useful and ignoring the hurtful comments that sometimes, some of the reviewers may give you comments that are unnecessary and unhelpful. I think is part of the biggest learning process. I think you have to do that with papers, with grants, with any kind of submission. It has to be an iterative process where you're just refining your work and you're looking at it as, how can I make this better? And I think medical schools don't often teach you how to kind of sell your product. That's not what we go into medical school to learn. And a big part of the grantsmanship is how to sell your idea, how to convince people who are not interested in the same thing as you that what you're interested in is important and should be funded. And so I think, again, with the help of mentorship, identifying even, small grants. And I benefited from small institution based funds from Penn pilot studies, as well as from industry, small, early investigator opportunities that I applied for that helped kind of bridge my support until I got my K-23. And then again, with my R1, it took several submissions to get my first R1 funded. And after I submitted my first R1, I was devastated when it was not discussed. But again, you just have to learn how to read the critiques and then take from them what is helpful and just kind of persevere in doing this. I think for people who are interested in a research career, you have to really be willing to put the time to rework the same paper, rework the same grant over and over again, like, your version 25, and still like it comes back half read and with all the track changes and everything. And it's just like, yeah, it's part of the process. So I think perseverance and growing, a thick skin so that you can just learn from critiques and move on is the biggest thing that I would recommend to people.
Nadine, that's fantastic advice, and thanks so much for sharing that. It's actually great to hear that because I'm in a streak of a lot of rejections right now, so it's great to hear that. It's motivational for me as well. Joey, you've had a stellar career. Can you tell us about a potential mistake that you made early on, and what were the lessons that you learned from it, or something that you wish that you knew when you were in your postdoc stage or your early assistant professorship?
I can share a little bit about the field about when I studied my lab. So I think what I learned from my first R1 submission, is that I was very conservative at the time. I just feel like I gather a lot of like information or like literature that's already established in the field, like a mechanism or pathway, and then also the approach I'm using. And I saw this is the classical method, and then it's more secure, then people will trust, the conclusion or trust the hypothesis driven. But that actually is totally it's not, the grant is not discussed, and then and the score is really like kind of low score around like a 6 or 7, 8. I remember that's kind of like very frustrated. But I tried to reach out to one of the senior investigator at University of Arizona. One that was that Stephen Black. And Steve told me that you need to try to put like everything that you can excite the review, because of they get all maybe 10 or like 11 application at a time. And then if everything looks similar, then you won't able to get convince the reviewer that this is the fundable project. And then so I think innovation and then also wherever the concept or the tool or methodology that could potentially drive the field, that I think that's the review looking for. So that right now, so after that, I try to basically to utilize different kind of tool, or maybe literature, or the discussion with colleague or postdoc. So to be innovative on my the project we are working on. I think that's kind of like a after that, I think I learned from that, and then we have a few success example. So others will be running a lab at the beginning. I think for me, lab management is a very challenge for me, because of we all didn't have this experience when we were training as a postdoc. So. And then I feel like I would like to do better, in terms of the communication or expectation, when I was, get started, because of I assume that people, being a postdoc already know, what data looks like, or the rigor or the lab culture, for example. But but it really is not. So it's basically the training is different. So right now, I would try to do it, invest more on the onboarding, like a written expectation, and a regular checkup to with them to set up the culture about the lab, and then the expectation. And then the last thing I would like to share is that I was focused too much detail when I got started. So I basically I wrote all the like animal protocol, like IRB, not IRB as IBC protocol, and also I genotyping, the mice, have so many mice, it's just so much detailed work, and I write the grand paper, right? But these are not sustainable. And then I kind of changed the strategy now. So I will rely on, the lab personnel. So I will can spend more time in terms of collaborations, grant, and then, the papers. And then at the same time, the trainee or the postdoc, they also they got trained, how the projects form and then how the lab is running. So they know everything, how to run in the lab. So I think that would be the few points I would like to share.
I hope all of you are enjoying this as much as I am. This is great. All the stories, all of you are sharing is just great. Same as Sasha, same as all of you. I'm still going through this streak of rejection, so it's here to know it's not just me. Jasleen, what about you? You told us about coming to the US. What about now? What about as you are becoming an independent PI, as you are looking for funding? What are some of those mistakes you think you've made, and what advice you would have for people in your situation?
Yeah, and so perhaps I can offer some advice more as a junior investigator, because I think the wealth of knowledge here is just there's so much. So I think for me, sort of mistakes and things that have really worked out well have fallen under 3 buckets. I think the first one is focus, the second one is mentorship, and then the third one is just learning to build a thicker skin. So I think in terms of focus, number one, and this was something that I wish I had done better through fellowship or soon after fellowship, is, early on I said yes to a lot of things, collaborations, committees, teaching commitments, side projects. And, there is one of my other colleagues, senior colleagues at Penn, once told me during a career development committee meeting that, everything you do should count twice on your CV. And I think that has sort of been like fantastic advice that I've tried to run with now. Although I see some disappointment on Nadine's face right now, so maybe I'm still not doing it well. But I think making sure that you're sort of like laser focused and understand that if you're committing, 80% of your time to NIH research, then 80% of your time is NIH research, and everything else is sort of secondary. So number one would be focus. Number two is more advice, and I think I've been really lucky for this, is mentorship. I've come to realize that, number one, you don't need a single mentor. It's really a team sport. I think it's helpful for me. It has been helpful to have both a senior and a junior mentor. So for example, during residency, it was George Washko. During fellowship, it's Steve Kaywood, and they're both fairly, senior full professors. But then I had, assistant or associate professors like Nick Rahagi or Nadine, who were, I think, closer to where you're at, sort of, helping with the day-to-day things. And then also remember, you can always seek out career mentorship outside of scientific mentorship, right? Because there are lots of other people, we have so many resources within ATS and within our home divisions that could still offer you, the overall career checkpoints and bring you like a different perspectives that your sort of scientific mentors that are down in the nitty-gritty with you may not be able to have. And then the third thing I think has been, covered, we talked about it a fair bit, is just like building a thicker skin and not taking things personally. So for example, paper rejections, grant rejections, as a female IMG, it is like fed into my imposter syndrome a whole lot, but trying to sort of separate the personal from the science and working on the science. And then also realizing that there is no like one way to do things, right? So for example, post-fellowship, the classic or traditional path is apply for your F and then apply for your K, right? But I didn't get my F, so I had to take a step back. And, with my mentors, I think I applied for like 7 or 8 grants in a 6-month period. And then, fortunately ended up getting 2 of those funded sequentially with the ATS and United Therapeutics. So again, like looking at your opportunities and sort of just rolling with the punches, I think is super important.
Thank you so much. I do have one open question now for all the speakers. You guys can, jump in whichever. We obviously, one of the hardest things, at least also for me as an immigrant, was to find community. We all find that research perspective and the mentorship and all the things that we need to do to survive in research and through medicine and through residency and through fellowship. But all of it requires that feeling of community. What do you guys have to say to others who come in, fresh to the United States and they don't even know where to find anything that would make them feel comfortable or more at home? Do you guys have any experiences of how you started that and how did that change your career?
Because I'm leaving earlier, so I will share with my if you don't mind. So I think PH field is a very welcome, inclusive community. And then I just remember when I was a postdoc. At that time I think my English is not my first language, and then I still not very confident to speak English when I went to the AHA conference, and then I remember very clearly that Lamar Gregory at the time just told me that you can speak slowly and then clearly present who you are, where you come from, and always ask good questions. And that actually is motivated me a lot because it's a very supportive environment. And it's not just come from my own mentors, come from the community who support us, and then like Benicio, I never know what is K99 when I went to the Pulmonary Hypertension Association, and that actually Benicio told me, he told me that you had a good paper, you should go for it, and then I try and eventually I got it. So I think I think this community is really supportive for us. And then I wish I could, went out for in this community earlier, even, before. I wish I can, come to US for like a graduate training, because that's basically it's back more like another 5 years time. And also I could go out for, or at least go out for the conference or this community earlier, because I started to go to the meeting after my third year of postdoc training, because at that time, I got paper published. But I think I could, if I can go earlier, I would do that. So yeah, that's for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you having the time to join us, and congratulations on a very successful career. Well, we're getting close to the end of the meeting. I just want to say to all of you, I really enjoy all your stories. Seeking mentorship outside our institutions is so important. We all have excellent mentors within our institutions, but an outside advisor is always it's always good advice to have, having a thicker skin, as Nadine said, so important. I wish that were easier, but that's how it is. Anyways, Sasha or Pepe, any comments or any questions that you have for our panel?
I don't know if there's any questions. I have maybe a brief summary just for the rest of the speaker, so the audience. But yes, Nadine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say to everyone, I mean, all our meetings, ATS, CHEST, PVRI, PHA, they're great places to meet people. And as nervous as you are going up to somebody and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, they are as nervous as you. And it's something that I still struggle with, and I have to remind myself that it's okay to just walk up to somebody and introduce yourself. But I think the more, you reach out to people, the more you realize that they're very open to kind of meeting with you and collaborating with you. And I try to remind myself that, anytime I see like, oh, this person is like an alumni of the same university, I reach out to them just because I know that there's so few of us here. So I feel like, I want to reciprocate back, but just to remind everybody that it's, just taking that first step and that it becomes easier. You just build a lot of friendships, like everyone who's on this call.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit, Nadine. I think it's like fantastic advice. I just wanted to kind of give a little bit kind of more structured approach. If you didn't do it yet, please join ATS Pulmonary Circulation Assembly. And if you didn't do it yet, kind of like keep an eye or join Pulmonary Circulation Assembly Early Stage Committee. So like it's lots of folk in early stage committee are at the same career stage as you are. And another thing that pulmonary hypertension is very inclusive field. So it feels like family. And if you, for example, if you wanted to go to the conference, and we usually try to pair senior and early stage moderators. So if you, for example, feel you want moderator role, so please reach to conference organizers and just offer your help. Or if you feel uncomfortable with this, like reach to somebody, like contact me, right? And say like, hey, Elena, I'm just going to Aspen conference, and can you like ask team, like maybe they need early stage moderator, something like that. Like, I mean, like be proactive, and like I never heard no from any pulmonary hypertension member of any PC assembly member. Never. Yeah, I asked people, and like if they could, they helped me.
All right, well, this is incredible. Thank you very much, everybody. I guess I've been trying to like write like a little, word cloud to see what are the, the common words, and obviously besides the word Stephen and the word Kwood, probably one of the things that I would want to tell the audience is grit. I think as coming in as a foreign medical grad or as a foreign researcher, grit is one of the things that you're going to have and require for you to be able to successfully get through this, because it's not for the faint of heart, I would say. And after that, once you know that you will need grit, is find somebody who can guide you through. Mentorship has been critical for every single one of us. We've all find someone in one way or the other, by emailing, by running into somebody at a conference, by, randomly being dragged by someone else in a conference to be with somebody else. And I guess we all have stories of how networking, eventually becomes critical for career development. This is the people going to be reviewing your grants, or the people are going to be like helping you like write the papers. So I would like to say to the rest of the audience here that in addition to all of that, the last one thing that I would 100% recommend is understand the rules of the game. What is necessary for immigration, what is necessary for application. And now that you have so much technology available from the LLMs, just make a folder and then start breaking it down, and then just like break it into pieces so it's easy to digest, because the system is so thick. And there's so many like loops and stuff that you have to go through to be able to get through it. So I would recommend the audience that they start like that. And lastly, that to reach out, like again, just like Nadine and Elena said, we're all just people, so, and everybody started one way or the other, and everybody's willing to help because we were all helped by someone else. So just reach out. And just like they were saying, the assembly will always be welcoming towards like getting more people get involved in the assembly, bringing more people in, more students, more moderators. Like this is how we build community, which at the end of the day is what I believe is one of the missions from the ATS. Again, thank you very much, everybody, for your help. I hope that we can start like maybe sending you people to like with questions about specific things, but again, Roberto and Sasha, thank you very much for, organizing this. And I don't know if you guys have any more questions to close.
Thank you for putting this together. Really wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And then don't be surprised if we end up reaching out for you guys to kind of help writing like a small statement, that we can then submit, for publication. So it's important that people know this. There are a lot of resources out there. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes.
Last three words. Early stage investigator status.
Correct.
This is very important.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And Roberto.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tata,
Thank you,
very
everybody,
much.
and enjoy the holidays. See you in Orlando, okay?